Hey, and welcome back to Girl Chat Sports. We are on episode Trace. I just did a hand movement even though nobody can see it. Welcome to the show. I'm Melissa, your host, and of course with me is lovely
Stephanie.
We are back, you guys, and of course we have a lot of NFL news. I mean, there's been so much going on in football, and I'm so sad there's 4 or 5 weeks left. Like, that's it.
I know, the end is near.
Oh, we want to start off with Cowboys.
Yeah, so Dallas clinched the playoff berth after the Redskins lost to the Cardinals. It's our first postseason appearance since 2014 and the second since 2009. We made it!
And you clinched it without even having to, you didn't play Sunday, so technically it was like you clinched without playing since you guys had a Thursday night game.
Everybody in our division lost, and we didn't even play, and we won.
That's awesome. Can't beat that.
Doing well so far, 11-1. We're super excited, getting ready for the game on Saturday against the Giants. The haters are still out and crazy and believe that we are going to have something to come up against with the Giants on Sunday.
Well, only because they are the one team that beat you, even though it was, of course, the beginning of the season.
But. Yeah, well, we made a dumb mistake of Williams not going out of bounds in the last few seconds of the game, which we had an opportunity to actually win, and so that was definitely our own fault. But, the Giants haven't been very consistent this season, and I just heard, yesterday that Jason Pierre-Paul is out for at least 6 weeks getting surgery on a hernia. So I feel like that won't be very good for them, but also not going to be an excuse for anybody if we beat them, when we beat them.
Right. Well, you guys did well against the Vikings last Thursday, which was great. I think even I expected a little bit more from the Vikings, which they actually did a really great job, I thought, against you guys. They were only down by 8 with 45 seconds to go. They scored a touchdown. They went for the 2-point conversion. And for some reason, none of the refs saw a face mask penalty on Sammy Biscuit.
No, they tapped him.
Tapped him and his head swung back from a face mask. So clearly they couldn't get the 2-point conversion and tie the game. Ended up losing by 2, which was a little unfortunate. I'm always the team's fan, whoever's playing the Cowboys. So I was a little bummed on Thursday, but I guess it was just made to happen. Jerry's paying somebody off well.
We lost 2 fumbles and still came back from that.
Right. Even Dak, I think, had a strip ball.
Yeah, he did. And then Lucky Whitehead ran it down pretty far, and they had to bring it back. So a little disappointing, but it was a good game.
Right. Well, I'm excited to hear what we forgot to mention earlier, because we just jumped right into Cowboys and football, because that's how eager we are and how much we love football. We actually have a guest coming on in a little bit, Becker Alshowk from The Plugs, sports radio over at George Mason University. He'll be on with us a little bit later. So he actually is an Eagles fan, which should be interesting to hear all of us communicate, since we are all NFC, and that's kind of like one of your guys' rivals too. So, but in regards to my Seahawks kicked the butt off of the Carolina Panthers this past weekend.
Carolina, no surprise.
Not a surprise necessarily, but, for us coming from our 5-point game in Tampa Bay to going to a 40-point season-high game at home against Carolina, 534 yards in offense. Thomas Rawls is back officially. He scored 2 touchdowns in the first half, which was amazing. He literally was hurdling over people into the end zone. I love seeing that. We had Michael Bennett back on defense. Our wide receivers, and even Jimmy Graham, Curse, Baldwin, Lockett, Graham, they all had over 60 receiving yards, which, usually it's good if we can get 1 or 2 guys start catching the ball for us, but having all 4 of them all spreading the wealth evenly and Wilson finding targets was amazing. I'm super glad for that. The only sad part, and it's a real pain, it's hurts my heart. Earl Thomas is out for the season, so broken, fractured tibia in his leg. Can we just talk about how strong or how cement-like Cam Chancellor must be if you can break your leg hitting him? If you guys watched the play on Sunday, I was wondering what happened to Earl, because I didn't see him hit a defender. I didn't see, or an offensive player. I didn't see him hit anybody, but you saw his leg kind of hit Cam and bounce off. That's how he broke his leg, off Cam Chancellor.
Can we talk about him tweeting during the game, though?
Oh, the tweets, the illegal tweets during game time.
Where he said that he potentially could be retiring.
I mean, this is a guy who, has basically started and been in almost every game he's ever, straight. I think he missed a couple just recently, but he had like 160 some games, or not games, but it starts or time quarters. I can't remember what the stat was. You know me and my stats. But, I'm sure having this happen, knowing how close you guys are to the playoffs, wanting to end the season, really good, and then all of a sudden you're laid out, on a stretcher, it can't really feel good. So I hope he doesn't retire. Dear Earl, please don't retire. The Legion of Boom needs you. The Seahawks need you. The 12th man needs you. We need you. We want you back. But I'm sure a lot of emotions are going through your head when stuff like that happens. Plus, I know he has a family now, and those kind of things take into consideration. I also know he tweeted out to Cam Chancellor that he's owed a steak. I wonder if he got his steak dinner yet.
At the very least.
At the very least.
Can we talk about how terrible the Panthers are right now? The 4-8 Panthers.
What's so crazy is, okay, so the Seahawks lost to the Panthers in the playoffs last year. Okay? We lost to them. This year, they're terrible. I don't see how, the Panthers went to the Super Bowl last year, and where are they now?
It's seriously the most disappointing follow-up season in recent history. It's terrible. But the same thing can go for Newton, who was the reigning league MVP. Look at him.
Yeah, there's a lot less Superman shirt, symbol things happening this year. A lot less keep pounding and a lot less of the dabbing.
Yeah, well, I will say that not just that, but I don't think the coach is feeling him all too much right now either.
So, was anybody else completely thrown off by how he basically sat out the first series in the game because apparently there was a wardrobe issue, a violation of his pregame fashion or pregame, I don't know what they call it, your whatever. He didn't wear a tie.
Yeah, well, even
Traveling.
TMZ showed a video of Cam getting on the bus and Coach Rivera having a little conversation with him before he got on the bus, and he just kind of resigned to it and went on the bus.
Yeah, it's so here's the deal. We all have seen Cam Newton's clothing and wardrobe choices and fashion sense, especially post-game during interviews. I'm just curious why he couldn't be, sat out because of some. I mean, you see these big rat tail things coming out of his pocket, or the man capris, or the hats with the brims that look like, what's the one cartoon character? Dudley Do-Right. I mean, out of all the things, he didn't wear a tie. And what's so funny is that in the article that I read, it said that he basically chose not to wear it because it didn't match his outfit.
Well, so I heard that they were leaving San Diego, is that where they played previously? And I guess that they shipped all of their stuff or whatever, where he didn't have a whole lot of clothes, and basically was saying since he's such a big dude, he couldn't borrow a shirt from one of the other players or something to actually wear a tie. So he just didn't have any with him, I guess, if you will.
That's so crazy. It's, and funny because that was the first series and we got the interception off of Anderson's pass during that time, which, not like it would have made a difference in a 40-7 game, but it definitely was interesting.
It's just such a change of treatment. In the past, Rivera's made many excuses for him. Remember when they lost the Super Bowl and Cam didn't want to do the interview and Coach scoffed it off they shouldn't necessarily have to or whatever. So there's been other dress code violations that Coach was cool with. So
right.
I don't know if this was a message to him or the entire team, but he's not very
I guess
happy.
We'll see. Well, one of the other crazy things going on, a couple things, is Colin Kaepernick got benched in the fourth quarter. They were down 18 points. Apparently, there was not a single reception in the first I think quarter or two of the game by either team.
Yeah, he was just one of 5 passes.
Granted, it was snowing like crazy. However, it was interesting to watch the game. But yeah, he was benched in the fourth quarter. I guess he's going to be starting again this weekend. But I don't think he even expected that. That was pretty interesting. And he also becomes a free agent after this year. So that should be interesting to see where Colin should go, or if he remains in San
His
Francisco.
stats said that he became just the second quarterback since 1970 with more takedowns than passing yards in a single game.
Oh,
Ouch.
man. I thought our offensive line was bad, but yeah, that's terrible.
Speaking of quarterbacks, RG3 is getting his start this Sunday.
I cannot believe that. Well, not to mention that the Browns have like no other quarterbacks to turn to. But
he's finally healthy. Let's give him a shot.
He's finally back. They're going to go against the Bengals, which should be interesting. So it's pretty interesting in fantasy-wise, which I'm currently still sucking in. Basically, the rule of thumb is if your team or your person's playing the Browns, play them. I don't care who it is, what's going on, just play them if they're playing the Browns. So that's interesting.
Going from the worst quarterback to the best quarterback in the league, Tom Brady. He's broken a record, had 200 wins as a starting quarterback. He actually beat, or last year he tied for 200 and, oh, I'm sorry.
Last week he tied for 200,
yeah, so, and he is beasting as always.
What killed me is that they did an interview with him. It's like, oh, it's been 201. You're currently the winningest QB ever. And he was like, yeah. And they're like, what's the best? What's your most favorite pass that you can remember? And of course, he didn't really talk about the pass. He's like, I just like the Super Bowl. And it showed like the highlights of them beating us in the Super Bowl, which I didn't like. Pretty Tom.
The craziest part about it is he was the 199th pick in the 2000 draft. 199th pick.
I'm trying to tell you that these 4th, 5th round pick people, I mean, Russell Wilson, Richard Sherman, these are all, Cam Chancellor, all these people were picked late in the draft. So then you see people like, Jared Goff, who was picked first, and well.
He's 39 years old right now and still doing this.
Yeah. Good for Tom. Okay. Other news, the Raiders, did you see that comeback of theirs? So the Raiders played Buffalo this weekend, and, the Buffalo was playing really good. This was kind of be like their biggest matchup. I'm talking to a friend of mine who's a huge Raiders fan, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are down by 14 points. You're down by this many points. I mean, I'm going on and on and on. They were down 24-9 in the first, after I think the first half. Buffalo, second half comes. Raiders scored a touchdown on the next 3 straight drives. There was 29 unanswered points, and they beat the Bills 38-24. So had you just shut off the TV after the first half, like I probably would have done, had I not been a super NFL freak, you would have realized that the Bills, they came back and scored 29 unanswered points.
Carr actually made history. He's the first player in the NFL to throw 5-game winning touchdown passes in the fourth quarter or in OT.
Wow.
All with a dislocated, pinky?
Oh, the pinky,
something?
yeah. And I think he would, we'll see how that affects him this weekend, but it didn't seem to do too bad for him this past week. Real quick, as I know we had discussed a little bit, or maybe we hadn't discussed, but there's the flex schedule. So flex schedules happen usually towards the end of the season where the NFL can decide or change what the current Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football teams will be playing, just based on ratings and to try and get more ratings and to pump the season. So flex schedules options are now available for Sunday and Monday night games. So most likely, happy for me, I guess, is that there'll probably be a lot more Cowboy games on because now they can flex to, whatever team is most popular. And of course, America's team, that's 11-1. I'm sure we'll get a lot more play.
I don't care when they play, I will be there. I'm just saying, I think it's a smart move because seriously, Monday night's game was trash. Who watched the Monday night game? If they were able to flex other nights outside of just Sunday,
terrible.
They should do it because I'm quite sure the ratings were bad for the Monday night football game.
Not even that, but here's the deal. Those two teams, you wouldn't have even thought about that they would have been good this year to put them on a Monday Night Football game.
Somebody needs to be fired.
Exactly. So we'll touch real quick on some college football before taking our break and getting back interviewing Becks. Obviously, there was the Pac-12 championship that happened. Washington won. My Huskies beat Colorado. First time to win the conference title since 2000. Also, a big congratulations to Jake Browning, who was the first Pac-12 Player of the Year for the University of Washington since 2000, which back then was the Pac-10 back then, and a guy that I went to school with, Marcus Tuiasosopo, was it back then. So congrats to him. Also, we've got Alabama one, so we actually are going to be going playing against Alabama in the in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. I'm a little bummed because I'm going to be in San Francisco that weekend for the Seattle game, but Alabama and Washington are in the Peach Bowl. We've got Ohio State and Clemson are both in the Fiesta Bowl. There was a huge thing going on between Penn State because Penn State won the Big Ten championship, but Ohio State, who didn't make it into the Big Ten championship, still gets to be in the playoffs, and Penn State is not.
Record matters.
Record matters. People believe that Washington shouldn't have been there because of strength of schedule. However, we won the Pac-12. So what it comes down to was Alabama, Washington, and then Ohio State, Clemson. But you also have the Orange Bowl with Michigan and Florida, Cotton Bowl with Wisconsin and West Michigan, Rose Bowl with Penn State and USC, Sugar Bowl, Auburn, and Oklahoma. So those will all be on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day games, and we will definitely keep you posted as to those. Las Vegas, however, has their own bowl. San Diego State and Houston, which is the first time they've actually had to compete against each other, I guess. So that should be interesting. And that happens all on the 17th of this month in December. So we'll be right back with our guest, Becks from The Plugs.
Palmer Alexander for the Inner Zone Sports Show. Want to tell you about our sponsor at Gossip Pasta. Now she's at a new location at 291 Chesterfield Mall Food Court. She's open 7 days a week. Make sure you get in on all of the goodness. And don't forget the food is made with a bunch of love. Only at Gossip Pasta. The food's so good, it'll make you say, Shatorta, give it to him, queen.
Hey, I'm Kiana with Gossip Pastas, and when I'm in the lab, I'm always in the zone.
All right, and welcome back. We are so excited right now. We have got Becker, Alshowk, a.k.a. Becks, live from The Plugs. Becker, are you there? Becks, are you there?
Becker is here, the one and only.
The one and only.
It's okay. Don't worry about not pronouncing my last name. Trust me, you're not the first to fail at that.
Give us the correct pronunciation, please.
Well, in English, I would just say Alshowk.
Uh-huh.
And then if you want me to pronounce in Arabic, it would be Alshowk.
Ah, okay. So Becker comes to us from The Plugs. It's a radio station that you got out there. Is it George Mason University?
Yeah, it's called WGMU. Yeah.
Awesome.
George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia.
Fairfax in the big DMV.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell us kind of like how I guess you got into like sports radio or into radio period. I also noticed just from stalking you on Instagram that you are, I guess, raised or kind of grew up in Dubai. How did you get, to the United States? And as far as, I don't know if you were here to begin with, and then as far as how you kind of settled down with George Mason University and got involved with the radio station there.
Right. So to start things off, before I moved to Dubai, I did used to live here. So I moved out there for basically my teenage years. Spent a few years out there, and then I came back to here, to study for university and for college and whatnot. Majoring in communications, and the reason I got into the radio station was because I always had a passion for sports, since day one.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those guys that was always screaming at the television screen, whenever my team was either down or up or things of that nature. Like, it was to the point where even when I was living in Dubai, how, the time difference was so, dramatic. You would have, an 8-hour time difference. And so I would wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. to catch the day games to watch my guy D.Wade and Miami Heat play. And right before I'd take the bus to go to school, and I'd be waking up my parents, and my parents would always be pissed off at that. And that from then on, I've really just had such a passion for it that I really wanted to pursue a career in sports. And so that's how I really got into it. And once I was applying to see about the radio station, and they're like, yo, you can have your own show, and then you can, freelance it, you can do your own social media, and you can invite your own guests, things like that. I was like, okay, let me run with this and see what I can do. And, over the years, it's just something that we've grown, and, it's become, pretty big out here.
That is so awesome. And you guys have had some great guests. I know we listened to a couple podcasts in regards to, I guess, one of the boxers you had on recently. He sounded like a really fun guy, really into the craft as well. Do you guys do a lot of boxing? I know you guys sounded well-versed in boxing. I, myself, am not so much, which is probably a shame for living here in Las Vegas. But
right, that is true. You got the MGM Grand out there, all the major fights in Vegas. For me, for me and my show, I cover sports all around the world, and we cover like any sport except maybe cricket and sports that I don't understand, the squashes. They never heard of sports until the Olympics arrive every 4 years. Other than that, we cover everything that we can do. So we've done a mix of boxing, UFC, stuck with the basics like basketball, soccer, even some baseball in there, as well as football, etc. So. But definitely the boxer that we've had on is, somebody that, fights out of Virginia. He's from Philly, and so he's undefeated 8-0. He has another fight on Saturday. And, from the fights that I've seen him fight in, he looks like he's, up and coming and that he could be great one day. That's, when we had him on the show, our conversations with him were just so, down to earth and honest. You know how, the rah-rah guys in sports, the guys that make millions of dollars sometimes want to be as PC as possible. Well, no, this guy was humble, and he was he was so willing to share everything. And, I just wanted to make sure that I was prepared beforehand, and, we come up with great questions and inside information. So that's really what we do on our show is we like to do our homework. And, my whole motto is that I want to be able to ask questions and get answers you can't find on Google that you can only hear on my show. So
nice.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. So
the answer that I'm looking for is why the Eagles?
Oh, my God. All right, so funny story about this, all right? I told Melissa, I tell her on the show. So when I was younger, we lived here before I moved to Dubai, my dad would support all the local sports teams, okay? And, he would support the Redskins even though he didn't know a lick about football. He may have known the basics, some of the players back then, but I was just, kind of annoyed by the fact that he was cheering for them and didn't really know what was going on. So, naturally as a kid, I wanted to kind of piss him off. So I was rooting for the team that was actually playing the Redskins on a certain day. And it just so happened to be the Eagles, and the Eagles beat them that day. And so I was ecstatic because my dad was kind of sad, and I was happy. And so ever since then, I've been an Eagles fan, really since the early 2000s.
It's all been downhill from there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
she doesn't have room to talk really except for this year either. So let's be clear. We all know her allegiance.
At least the Cowboys have made it to the Super Bowl.
But yeah, still 2004 is still back in still in my head to this day. That's why I can't stand the Patriots.
Join the club because us Seahawks fans already have a bone with them.
Right.
So.
Right.
We all are haters.
Speaking of your Eagles, so Carson Wentz came out this year. I actually saw him at Senior Bowl last year, he was really impressive back then. I was surprised at how high he went in the draft. However, he did really well for the Eagles initially, those first 4 or 5 games, but then it kind of dropped off a little bit. What do you think is the reason for that, or do you think there's going to be a tail end push towards the end of the season, or is it just a rookie mistakes, or is it possibly that he has no one to throw to?
It's a little bit of a combination of everything you just said. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we were probably after 4 games, we were 3-1. I think we were rated at number 1 statistically, defensively and offensively. And I think the fact that Carson Wentz being the number 2 overall pick, people thought that Sam Bradford was going to start. So there's really no pressure on him. Then all of a sudden we traded Sam Bradford to the Vikings, and then he was thrown into the starting lineup. But I just thought at the beginning of the year there was no expectation strapped on the Eagles, and so that's why I thought that he was kind of playing more freely. And the fact that opponents didn't really want or necessarily need to gear up for the Eagles because we were going through transition. We had just Chip Kelly, So I expected him to kind of fall off towards the middle stage or the end of the year because he is a rookie at the end of the day. And as you mentioned, he doesn't have the requisite weapons. We have, Jordan Matthews, but he's been banged up. two times this year, and he's really our really number one option. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, the guy who was supposed to be the number one wide receiver for us, a Chip Kelly pick, hasn't really adapted to the NFL game. And then, our best offensive lineman, or one of our best offensive linemen, Lane Johnson, after 4 games was suspended by the NFL, I think it was for PED use or something like that. And so it was kind of like a downhill fall from there because, the offensive line is really, I say this about football, offensive, defensive lines are the main components to a football team. And when you lose, a good example of that is the Cowboys right now with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott, how they're able to flourish with such a great line. So I expected in the fall, but I've loved what I've seen from him this year. And, I think our future is bright. And I think next year we'll have a lot better season, especially with the fact that he's tasting losing early. And he's only had, in his collegiate career at North Dakota State, he's already had more losses in the NFL than he did his entire 4 years at North Dakota State.
Right.
So it's a transition for him, but it's good for him to get this experience now. So next year, we can get things rolling, especially with the fact that, the Eagles and Deshaun Jackson have heard rumors, reports saying that there's an interest of bringing Deshaun Jackson back to the Eagles. And as we mentioned, that's been the Achilles heel for our team this year. So I would love to see that.
That wouldn't be a bad look for you guys to bring him back too. I think that'd be nice.
No.
LeBron went home.
We need another one, right? We need another one of those miracles at Meadowlands Part 2.
Who do you got in the Cowboys-Giants games this weekend? Who do you have in the Cowboys-Giants game this weekend?
Unfortunately, as much as I want to pick the Giants, I just think the Cowboys have too much momentum going on. I know the Giants are the only team to beat the Cowboys this season, but it was in week 1. Dak and Zeke's first games in the year. You saw that it took Zeke a couple games to get adjusted and acclimated to the game, and ever since then he's been rolling. Looks like he's going to break the rookie rushing record. And Dak has slowly but surely progressed. But, I expect the Cowboys to win a tight one. You know how the NFC East games between every team in the division always seems to be close, no matter the records or anything like that. But, man, the Giants are just inconsistently inconsistent. That's what I call them. They look like a team every single year, a team that can win the Super Bowl or go 0-16. That's what I say about them. So you never know.
Completely accurate.
Right.
Well, Jason Pierre-Paul is out too, so I guess that makes a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, just a bit. They've struggled already with their pass rush, and so he's been one of their best pass rushers. And to have him out for now, I think it was 6 weeks. They reported that he's out. Might as well be almost the end of the season.
Yeah, they need to just call that season ending. I mean, really, let's be honest. What about the Seahawks, though? Let's talk about the Seahawks a little bit. How do you feel about my team?
Let's talk about the Seahawks. I love your team. I think your team this year was kind of like under the radar as opposed to how they've been in years past, and I think that's when they flourish and when they're at their best. Because when you guys beat the brakes out of that vaunted Denver Bronco offense of Peyton Manning and company, I mean nobody was picking the Seahawks.
Nobody.
And they just thrashed them. And then the next year, losing to the Patriots, such unlucky circumstances. And then how you guys lost to Carolina last year, I just thought people kind of forgot about them, and they're kind of reminding people that this is still a vaunted defense. The Legion of Boom is still there, even though Earl Thomas is out. But I think for me, when I look at the Seahawks, I think they're the one team that matches up greatly against the number 1 seed in the NFC, and that would be the Cowboys. And the reason being is, I think in order to beat the Cowboys, you need to force them to turn the ball over. Because I think we can all safely say that they're really going to dominate the time of possession in almost every single game, no matter who the matchup. I think they've proven that, with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott's willingness to not turn the ball over. And we've known the Seahawks as a team to feed off of turnovers and to feed off of big hits and sending messages to opposing offenses. And so I look at them as probably the best matchup. And plus you have a similar quarterback to Dak Prescott on the Seahawks in a Russell Wilson. He just has more years under his belt. He has a Super Bowl ring on his finger, so that always helps in terms of confidence. And he's also another one of those mature, poised quarterbacks who likes to run, but doesn't get hit a lot. And so I see them as being the favorites to come out of the NFC this year and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Great. Thank you for that.
You can say I was just saying that for you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I really do. Even though you didn't remind me when I was talking with you guys yesterday about Richard Sherman, I still hit myself in the head about that. But anyways, all of our listeners can just tune into that on the plugs, my interview that I had with them yesterday. But carrying on just real quick, so I know you're a big D.Wade fan, a huge D.Wade fan. How are you about him being back in Chicago, or not being back, but being in Chicago where he's from?
My God. Well, initially, it was a shock. I think it was a shock to the rest of the world. For me, if there's anything I thought I knew about life that was guaranteed, it would have been that Dwayne Wade, playing in the NBA, would always be in a Heat uniform at all times. And so 13 years with that franchise, brought them 3 championships. I mean, ultimately was the guy that made LeBron James come and win 2 more with them. I mean, it was shocking, but after a couple of days of kind of digesting the whole situation, I realized that this was the player that really made me fall in love with the game and made me fall in love with basketball and the Miami Heat. And so I was kind of happy for him because he had been taking pay cuts his entire career in order to satisfy the Heat in terms of their title, competition and hopes. And so I was happy for him, and the fact that he's going back home to Chicago, he's pairing up with a few more All-Stars. It wasn't like the Bulls were going through transition. They were able to acquire Rajon Rondo. They were able to keep Jimmy Butler, and, they seem to be a player in the East. So, I'm really happy for him, and he's had some big games this year. And he had a big game the other day beating LeBron James and the Cavaliers, 24 points. So I'm happy for him, and I'm ecstatic. But I can safely say right now, in all honesty, I haven't been following the Heat as much just because he's not there, and I can't say I'm a Bulls fan either because I'm somebody who's loyal. So if I'm not going to support,
that's good. We appreciate loyalty out here. Okay, I can agree with that. So just to quickly end up, we got to get you going. We appreciate you coming by, but I'm going to do a quick run off of a couple. I'm going to do a this or that, and you pick and you let me know which one you think is better or will win, in whatever the case may be. So first is Washington or Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Okay.
I never bet against Nick Saban. Learned that the hard way.
And then what about Ohio State or Clemson?
Oh, Ohio State, man.
Okay.
I don't bet against Urban Meyer either. Actually, I want to rephrase that. I would bet for Urban Meyer if you were to play Nick Saban just because of what he did to him in the national championship a couple years ago.
Okay. Duly noted. Kobe or MJ?
MJ, not even close.
Thank you.
Not even close.
And finally, what's your favorite candy bar? If you had to go into 7-Eleven right now and pick your favorite candy bar, what would it be?
Probably be a Twix.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
Caramel.
There you have it. Hey, do you want to let our listeners know where to find you or where to find your guys' radio station at?
Absolutely. You can listen to the plugs Tuesdays from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time at WGMUradio.com and also RadioFlag.com. You can find us on social media, Instagram at @theplugs_WGMU, as well as the same handle for Snapchat. And then for our Twitter, we got @theplugsWGMU -_. So that's where you guys can find us.
And where can they find you in case they want to social media stalk you as well?
Oh, if they want to find me, you can find me on Facebook, Becker Alshowk, and then also on Instagram, the Becks B3CKS, and then 2 underscores after that. And I don't really use my Twitter. Snapchat, you may want to think twice before following me on Snapchat. I tend to get a little weird on there.
Ooh, challenge accepted. All right, Becks. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So getting back into gear real quick before we wrap up the show, we really, the NBA. I know you've been watching a lot more than I have, so I'm going to let you shoot.
Man, there's
literally
great basketball games happening right now. We've got in the East, the number 1 team is the Cavaliers at 14-5. The Raptors are right there behind them with 14-7, and the Hornets are at 12-9. So it is definitely neck and neck in the East.
The Hornets? Wow.
The
I need to catch up on my
Hornets.
basketball. Maybe you should control my NBA fantasy league for me. 'Cause I still don't know what I'm doing on that one.
And in the West, we've got the Warriors at 18-3, the Spurs 18-4, right there behind them, and the Clippers are at 16-6.
Well, so about the Clay 60-point game that happened, I mean, everybody saw it. We don't need to get into it. Clay Thompson, he scored 60 points in less than 30 minutes, which is like all-time high ever since like, I don't know, the 30s or 40s or 50s, before the shot clock was
Wilt
even.
Chamberlain with 100 points. And even if they would have left him in the fourth quarter, I think it would have been really hard for him to score another 40 points. In fact, the closest any NBA player has gotten to Chamberlain's record was Kobe Bryant.
That was the game that was his retirement game. First of all.
No, it wasn't actually. 81 points.
Oh, his 81-point game. Yeah.
Yeah, against
I
the
was thinking of
Raptors.
his 60 points for his retirement game, which all it was feed Kobe the ball. It wasn't like he actually worked for that stuff.
Actually, Kobe scored 60 points 6 times during his NBA career. Michael Jordan scored 65 times, and Elgin Baylor did it 4 times.
Wow. MJ. I love him. Anyway, well, that's good. I still can't believe that was insane. But the funny thing is that, you know how a lot of quarterbacks or running backs will try to treat their offensive line because of how good they do for them. So Latavius Murray and Derek Carr from the Oakland Raiders, they treated their offensive line to courtside seats at that Warriors game, which was really interesting. So you got these huge, big guys sitting courtside. You know, these linemen are huge, and they're all just sitting there watching the game. So that was a pretty cool gift they got from their guys.
You know what would have been a great game to see is Westbrook on Sunday. He recorded his 5th straight triple-double, becoming the first player to have a triple-double in 5 consecutive games since Michael Jordan.
He's pretty much saying, like, screw you, KD.
He has superhuman stats right now. 31 points, 11.3 assists, 10.8 rebounds in the 21 games so far this season.
And we'd also like to say thanks to LeBron for being a good sport, and he did pay up on his bet to wear the Cubs jersey before the Bulls-Cows game.
Oh, and they lost. So
And they lost.
He lost twice that night.
Oh, that was so funny. Real quick, in Major League Soccer, the Seattle Sounders are playing in their very first Major League Soccer Cup versus Toronto on this Saturday at 5 p.m. So they get, I think it's going to be at CenturyLink. So they'll have the stadium to themselves because I think Seahawks, we play in Green Bay this weekend. So that'll be interesting. On an awe moment, Eric Berry from the Kansas City Chiefs, he was back in Atlanta to play professionally, obviously, for the Chiefs. He returned an interception for a touchdown and then ran back a pick on 2-point conversion attempts for the decisive points that led to their 29-28 victory over the Falcons. This was the first time he's been back home in Atlanta since he received chemotherapy treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2014, which he's been cancer-free for the last 2 years. It was such a sweet story when I read the article. Basically, he was giving he basically gave both those balls that he intercepted to his mom that was in the stands, and basically said, I tried to give her whatever, and in quotes, it won't amount to things that she's just given me as well as my dad. There were many nights that I could cry on their shoulder, trying to make sense of everything that was going on in life, and just kept telling me to keep pressing on, that I would be back to play the game that I want to play, and look at him. That's amazing.
Yeah. Another awe moment. Unfortunately, former Heisman Trophy winner and Chicago Bears first-round pick Rashaan Salam was found dead Monday night in Boulder, Colorado, in a park. They said no signs of foul play. In fact, I've heard that they found a note that it was a possible suicide. So, sending love and prayers out that way. Too sad to hear.
To family and friends, and also other teammates. I've seen a lot of guys that even played for like the Huskies and stuff that were around the same year as him, and they were, it's pretty sad to see stuff like this happen, and we wish, we hopefully that everything, other people kind of take note of this and can learn. So, yeah. But in other news, I guess this would be a good time for some arms of the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. This guy used to play for Seattle. I never noticed his arms like that. But when I saw him playing I'm talking about Robert Turbin. He's a running back for the Colts. He used to play for Seattle for a little bit. This guy's arms, when I saw him like reaching on to like to score his touchdown over the weekend, like he literally it's like his arms are bulging out of his jersey. He has ridiculous arms. So first one's for Robert Turbin, the running back from the Colts, number 33. Also, Joe Hayden, he's probably the only thing going for the Browns right now, only because he's got great arms. He's a defensive back, number 23, another great number. Joe Hayden has these ears that kind of like stick out, and it looks like he's flying away. But anyways, great arms, needless to say. And our little TBT arm for today would be Michael Irvin, wide receiver, number 88 from your lovely Cowboys. Well, guys, we really appreciate you tuning in once again. Please feel free to email us at Melissa or Stephanie at GirlChatSports.com. You can find us on all social media at GirlChatSports.com. You can find Stephanie
at S_wash.
And you can find me at Seattle, the number 4 _ life. Seattle 4 _ life. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we can't wait to see you again.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Thanks for checking out another great episode of Girl Chat Sports. And remember, we don't have balls, but we know how to cover them. Until next time, guys.